Welcome to Ornoth's Bedtime Stories. Tonight's story, Ornoth Learns About Art, written by Ornoth the Dragon and read by Ornoth the Dragon. One day, Ornoth was waddling down the street of the city, pretending to be a little white Siberian husky puppy. As he traveled, he saw a group of people sweeping up the sidewalk. These people were all wearing the same kind of t-shirt and wore funny belts with lots of big pockets. He was not sure what to think of these people who were cleaning only one section of the sidewalk. So he walked over to the grass next to the sidewalk where they were sweeping and laid down under the shade of a tree to watch them. Soon the people finished sweeping and started to kneel down on the sidewalk. They began taking different colors of chalk out of the big pockets on the back of their belts and started to scrape them against the sidewalk. This didn't make sense to Ornoth. It seemed very silly to him that they would clean up the sidewalk only to make it dirty again. Humans are so weird. They clean up just to make it dirty again, he said to himself. One of the people heard Ornoth and looked over at him with a smile. "Just wait until we are done. Then you will see," they told him. So Ornoth waited and watched. Occasionally, one of the people would point to what another was doing and say something about the color or ask where their line was going. None of this made any sense to Ornoth. Other people who were walking by now began to stop and watch what was going on as well. It seems that they were fascinated by what was going on. Ornoth wondered how anyone could enjoy watching someone make a mess, and it was even more confusing that they would need to work so hard together to make this mess. Finally, the people gathered up all their pieces of chalk and put them back into the big pockets on their belts and stood up. Everyone else around them clapped and talked among themselves about how pretty it was. How can a mess be pretty? Ornoth wondered. So he stood up and walked over to see just what was so interesting about this mess that everyone else found it worth stopping and looking at, and why no one was bothering to clean it. So Ornoth waddled over to take a look. However, there were now so many people gathered around it that Ornoth couldn't see, and walking around the crowd, he could not find any room to wiggle through to get a peek at the mess that they all thought was so fascinating. Ornoth huffed. "Silly people, I find my own way," he said to himself. Ornoth waddled back to the tree and turned from his puppy disguise back into his normal silver dragon self. Being able to change his shape made it much easier to do things like climbing trees. Ornoth scaled the thick oak tree trunk up to a big thick branch. Once on the branch, Ornoth waddled out along the branch to get a look from above at the crowd of people. What Ornoth saw made his jaw drop. There on the ground, an absolutely beautiful picture of a lady in a frilly red dress. On her dress was the name of the local performing arts center. Ornoth was agog at this because when he had been close to the ground and off to the side, it had looked like smears of chalk before. Ornoth almost missed it when the artists began to leave. He quickly followed them back to their art center to find out more about how it is that they managed to make such pretty pictures with nothing but chalk. He waited patiently for them to wash up from the chalk that now covered them, and then asked one of them where they got their magic chalk from. The woman he asked chuckled and asked him if she could pick him up and show him around. Ornath agreed. The woman told him that her name was Allie and put Ornath on her shoulders, then walked into another room where some of the artists were painting and one was working on a sculpture made of clay. There are not any magic chalk in here, silly little dragon. The magic isn't in the materials, but in the practice and heart we put into our work, she explained. Allie continued to walk around the room, showing Ornath how they took ordinary paint, clay, and other materials to make beautiful works of art. Some of them were familiar, like the picture of a forest that showed the beauty of nature. Others were more abstract, like a picture that had zigzagging lines in a spiral pattern that did not look like anything Ornath had seen before. Art can be represented lots of ways, in drawings, paintings, sculptures, and even dance. Art is the expression or application of human creative skill and imagination. It helps us to feel more emotionally, Ali said. Ornath was enchanted by all this art. He especially liked the sculptures because he could feel them as well as see them. One of the artists asked if they could paint a picture of Ornath and Ali. Ornath agreed, but he had to stay still for a long time, so he simply laid down across Ali's shoulders and fell asleep while they painted him. They named the painting Where Your Dragon Sleeps, and Ornath could not believe how well it came out. After it was done, another artist asked if he could use him as a model for a sculpture. This time, Ornath had to make a fierce pose for the one doing the sculpture. The sculpture was a brave knight fighting an evil dragon. When the sculpture was complete, the dragon in it did not look like Ornath, but it did look very realistic. Ornath loved watching the artist work, turning ordinary materials into beautiful works of art. He especially liked the amount of imagination that went into each item they made. Ali also told him about the plays and musicals. Ornath liked the idea of seeing a live performance someday. But it was getting late, and even many of the artists were starting to go home. So Ornath headed home as well to tell his family. He was especially excited to tell his sister because she liked to cook, and Ali had also showed him how art and food can go together. "That is my favorite art that you can eat," Ornath said to his family while wagging his tail. That night, Ornath made art food with his family for dinner. The end.